Good afternoon to you, Scott Baker. Glad to have you back.
Indeed, Mikey, and I was watching yesterday, even though I wasn't able to be with you and Lisa, and glad that we're kind of powering along here with Lead Better. And welcome to everybody that's watching or listening. Today's field note that we're talking about is called "Deciding on the Time to Decide," which is a fun title. It's field note number 1602 here for Wednesday, October 29th, 2025.
Yeah.
Deciding on the time to decide.
So this is a small part that comes out of our much larger decision-making module that we have inside of our playbook on our virtual platform that has all the admired leadership behaviors. We invite people to go take a look at that, all that. But every once in a while, we'll write about one small aspect of it that's not quite a behavior in and of itself. But this is a practice. This is something that is kind of part of that, but that it's not pulled out in the way that we have it pulled out here in today's field note. And so it's an interesting little thing to be like, well, how often do we actually do this? As part of the overall behavior, we recommend it all the time. But then when it comes like, oh, let me just pull out that as like a
little sliver.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing, I've kind of tracked a little bit around the themes that come across in the field notes, and there's a number of categories that things fall into. But it's interesting that, we have in field notes a lot of things that do point to good decision making. And generally, just for everybody watching, we have what we would consider to be in the field note category would be things that we consider advice. They're insightful. They're just good counsel, and you can become a tremendous leader there. We have our AI, Alex, which has a very high level subscription. Lots of top executives use it a lot, and it's trained on all of our content. And so it engages in coaching conversations with you around decision making or whatever. The admired leader behaviors that Mikey was just talking about are specific things within our subscriber platform, and they're very unique to the specific behaviors that we consider to be what we call admired leader behaviors, which is they've proven the test of time and across our criteria over decades to say this is the cream of the crop. Now, not everybody's going to be able to kind of dive into that platform or subscribe to it right away, but actually, to come to think of it, you sort of have to make a decision. I'm gonna decide to subscribe, or I'm gonna decide not to subscribe, or you need to make a decision about the timing, about when you think you eventually would. But in the meantime, if you're just reading field notes, you're going to become a tremendously better leader just by even bucketing or thinking about, well, could I become a much better decision maker just reading through the field notes? Absolutely, yes. And this is proof of it, this one today.
Right. And so usually we're talking about one-way decisions or two-way decisions to kind of clarify what kind of process we should put on that. And in this particular case, we're not talking about deciding to come up with a time to decide for all decisions. And generally speaking, we're not talking about two-way decisions that can easily be retracted. Easily we could trace something backwards and be like, we've changed our mind about that, even though we've talked about this decision. Those two-way decisions that don't have a big impact if we change our mind or retrack it, no big deal. And therefore, this kind of thing doesn't happen with that. But every once in a while in your organization or in your family, you've got these big one-way decisions where when you're choosing to go down a certain path, it's going to cause a lot of trouble for you to have to trace that backwards. So as we're thinking about those one-way decisions, where there's a gate that's going to close behind us, that's going to be really difficult for us to pound that gate down. How is it that we should go about making these kinds of one-way decisions? And that means that, lots of people will be clamoring for information. They'll be wanting you to decide.
Right.
Can you just decide? I mean,
right.
And what are they really doing when people are saying that? That kind of clamor is mostly about saying, I want to do something, right?
Sure.
I feel like I can't do anything.
I'm paralyzed here. Right. Or I have other things on my docket or in my life, depending on the circumstance, and I'm waiting here. And in fact, they're worried, and the leader is probably worried. People are losing confidence in me because can't make a decision.
Yes. So I mentioned a decision that my daughter and my wife and I made together just this weekend, where we kind of went through a few different things to say, okay, we're just going to talk about this, but we're not actually going to decide. And then as my wife and I were kind of decompressing why it was an emotional moment for our daughter, it was really about this notion of, oh, there's some people who just want to deal with one thing at a time in their lives. And there's a lot of people in your organization who are just like that. And once they know that this is something that is being considered, some new decision, some new path, and it'll be a disruptive path. And so this notion of being paralyzed from doing anything else until that thing is answered, that loop needs to be closed. It's very common. It's very common for people to feel like, I can't do anything until you tell me what that is. And so in a lot of ways, leaders are solving for that issue that a lot of their team members might have, right? And if that's the case, then this is one of the things that you can do to solve that. Like if the field note was written just on the idea of like how to break your team members out of paralysis on something like this, that could have been the whole impetus for this being written.
Yeah. Well, and the logic in the field note that makes sense here is that if you're the leader, and we know, and a lot of the things that have been written about in field notes and in other content of ours, that bad decisions usually kind of come back to like some piece of information that you didn't know yet. In fact, if you're looking at that decision in the rearview mirror, you're kind of like, gosh, if I had only known that. When we decided to put our new restaurant on this corner at the intersection, but we didn't know about what was happening with the redesign of the interface of the new parking lot that was and it just made it so that nobody could get to our location, and it cut our foot traffic by 30%. But we didn't know that, like, because the county didn't announce the new roadway map until 4 months later. So there's pieces that you're kind of saying, if I only knew. And so that's why leaders are often, it's not always, sometimes they are indecisive, but sometimes they're just like, there's something not right here, or I don't have enough pieces of information. So the field note is saying, rather than just drift along with this sort of period where like, well, we're going to see, and we're going to talk about it, and let's bring that up again, that if the leader and the team kind of get together and say, all right, we know that by this time, if we're going to open our new location and we want to get the contractors, and we got to get the site design, and we got to get the schedule for the delivery of materials and everything else. If we don't do that by February 1st, then this is going to be a 2027 problem, right?
Right.
So if you know that you're going to have to make a decision by February 1st, then you say, okay, well, we've got, 16 weeks. I'm not calculating it exactly here. And so we're going to have to make a series of things that we kind of come up with. And by the fact that you say, we're not going to decide now here on October 29th, but we are going to decide by January 15th, right? And so when you put that date line, and it says, it's not saying that you know what the decision is. It just says but we need to make a decision by that time. So between now and then, we've got to know this and this and this and this. And therefore, hey, team A, you're going to handle this thing. Team B, you're going to do research on this. Team 3, you're going to be working. So all of a sudden, everybody has both a timeline and a job to do. And that solves this sort of morass of like, we're just wringing our hands and just talking about the same stuff, because we put a date on the calendar and we have jobs around that date.
Right. So that decision point that you just came up with this, if I could restate kind of what you just said, is based on when the decision becomes a decision that you're forced into as a result of not having made the decision.
Yeah, like to your one way or two way, you've gone through a time gate that you can't get back out of.
Right. And so at that point, you're like, okay, I don't want to be stuck simply because no one has decided anything. So that's where the date is. Is there any other reason where you might put another date? Or is that like there's, and it's not always time-based crunches that allow you to choose that particular decision. Sometimes there could be relationship decisions. There could be all kinds of things that say, but it's whenever. I guess it's a question I'm asking. Is there anything else then whenever inactivity becomes a decision in itself, and you're going to like put it a week before that?
Yeah, there could be. Well, let me see if this is what you're speaking to. If I've got that right, so I'm going to see if how this sits.
You'll restate my restatement. Go for it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I'm restating. I'm trying to apply it in a way because we often talk about in decision making contexts without getting into specifics of an admired leader behavior around the idea that sometimes you're actually not going to do anything different, right? Like you like how you thought you needed to change something, but then you decided later, kind of like it how it is, right?
Yes.
It's possible that on January 15th, our decision is we're not picking a corner for the new restaurant.
Yes.
Because there's too much uncertainty. There's too much flux in the marketplace. The cost of financing is too high. And so we are gonna wait till 2027.
Yes.
So it may be a decision to not do anything.
Yes.
Right. And that in and of itself is a decision. And it could be a forceful decision. And that you as a leader, and the problem in many organizations, sometimes when that comes along and the leadership says, let's just wait. They don't communicate that to everybody else in a way that lands.
Yes.
And so everybody's still thinking like, why are we still talking? What 2027 now? Just like I guess we missed the deadline. Just be clear about your gates and your dates. And then it'll all kind of come into alignment. And I like this. I think it works on a lot of levels. In corporate circumstances, it works in personal planning circumstances in terms of like, we don't know where we're going to go on vacation, but you get the family together and you're like, let's all plan to decide by April 1st so that we know where we're going this summer and we all have time to think about it and then plan activities because we actually know, as much as we sometimes want to surprise people with vacation ideas, that it's the anticipation and the thinking about a great vacation that actually is part of the endorphins that make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
And that the build up to something, as long as the expectations are in line with the reality, then you've made it actually more pleasurable than everybody fractious and you're trying to make, okay, well, we'll just go there. Right.
Yeah.
Then you missed all the fun.
Yeah. It's great. You know, I heard somebody in our firm say that very thing, that the biggest thing that leaders often make a mistake about doing in their communication is that when they have one of these indecisions, like they've decided to do nothing, that they don't announce it, right?
Yep.
And so it leaves leaves people hanging. So choosing and being public with this is the time that we've chosen to decide helps you to be able to like remember to communicate out any of your indecision decisions that you're making as well.
Yeah. And I don't think, and I like the back half of this field note, particularly as we outline this idea of like, as people have a structure then around that timeline, then everybody's involved in this process.
Right.
And I don't think that you have to kind of come in and say, all right, everyone, we've decided by January 15th. And so then everybody, let's get to work. This is never, you don't have to put an apocalyptic tone to it. It can be like, here's the date, and you just routinely make this around all of them. We're going to have to make a decision about this. It's by that date, and you have all kinds of trackers that they're using. But the idea of giving a team or giving kids a chance to kind of play in terms of, I want you to look at all of the East Coast cities we could go to, and we're not going to go to the West Coast, but maybe we would go up by the border with Canada or something like that. I want you to investigate, all the different places where we could go that are in driving distance of where we live. Let's say,
yeah.
And now the kids have a job, and they feel bought in.
You're alluding to something that's really great, right? And this shows up in a lot of our leadership behaviors, like when you're trying to figure out how do I practice some of these things in a low stakes environment. Using your kids that way is a fantastic thing. Using like family vacations, or even as simple as like, we're going to choose where we're all going out to dinner. And usually this is an argument between me and mom in the front seat as we're driving on our way somewhere. But no, let's just take 7 minutes. And we'll actually follow the decision-making module that I've learned about on Admired Leadership. And I'm actually going to build this structure in such a way. What a great way to do it. Now, not only will your family appreciate it, you'll be able to see that decision-making process actually works really well. Yeah. And even though it's in a low-stakes environment, you'll definitely see lessons to be able to import it into a higher-stakes environment around the office. It's a great thing to do.
Well, and think about this. If you're modeling this for your team, that, at work or for the organization where you're volunteering or for your family, and you're teaching kids how to think about decisions and timelines. Because most kids, maybe they start to think about this by the time that they know when, okay, I got to do tryouts for this team, or the tryout for the school play, or here's when the college applications are due. And then they don't even think about like, well, then what do I need to do, like to say, I'm going to do this by this by this. And once I get those applications in and I get answers, I'm going to have to make a decision by this date. They get to that, but they haven't built it into their character, when they're 17. So the more that you can kind of talk these things out and kids go, okay, and you're the model of the pattern, and just make this to say, we're not going to make great decisions every time.
I love that kind of stuff so much. You mentioned your friend right before we talked about getting his daughter home from school by just saying, try to find a way home, right?
Yes, his 7-year-old, right.
His 7-year-old. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It is so great, right? I would take my kids and we would play a version of hide and seek. We weren't running inside of Home Depot, inside of Lowe's, right? But what I was really doing, which I didn't really tell them, is getting them lost enough that they had to ask an adult for directions to a place.
Yes, right. Yep.
And so there's so many different things that go on inside of a kid's psyche when, lessons about not being ego driven, lessons about like being able to ask for help, like stopping yourself and saying, and all of that being done inside of a controlled environment like a Lowe's, hardware store is fantastic. We need to do that kind of stuff in a low stakes environment all the time.
Yeah. And in 30 seconds, just so it doesn't sound like this friend of mine was trying to like kick his daughter out.
I love the story.
I was in another city in North Carolina to go to a wedding, and I went to go see a friend of mine about an hour away, and actually went to their church. And then after the church service, mom and the little baby went home. And so I was going to go to lunch with my friend. The 7-year-old was there. My friend, who's a brilliant person, very accomplished, makes it a policy just not to carry his phone on certain days. And so he didn't have his phone with him at all. And he could have found, among a couple hundred people there, a way for somebody to take his daughter home, but he gave that job to her.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, and she worked on it for about a half an hour and never could find the perfect answer. She ended up coming to lunch with us, right? But the point was, he wasn't going to solve the problem for her, and she was totally up for it because it's a routine thing, which was go find a way for you to get home on your own here. Go find somebody that can drive you. And she would go here. She'd come back and report on that. She'd go check with another person, come back. And so it was just like modeling the process of how do you figure it out? Everything's figure outable.
And psychologically, him creating a situation where she has a secure attachment style that's being
very much,
right,
very much so.
That's
there you
fantastic. Go. Okay, thanks for
All
that
right,
story.
thanks,
Appreciate
Mikey.
it. All right, bye now.